Hello YouTube and welcome to Laura Loves Literature. Today I'm doing my January 2026 reading wrap up. So in the month of January I read 6 books with an average rating at 3.3, which breaks down to 4 3-stars and 2 4-stars. 3 authors were new to me and 3 authors I have read from before. And so before we jump in, I just wanted to say that some of these books, especially this month, have some very triggering topics in them. And if you need to, go ahead and look up the trigger warnings. I just do not have the time to list out every single one of them, but definitely check out trigger warnings on these books if you know that you have triggers. So I do my wrap-ups in chronological order, so let us start with the first book I read of 2026. I have the physical copy in my room, but I am just too lazy to go get it, so we're just going to pop it up here on the screen, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a post-apocalyptic novel following a father and son who remain nameless through the entire story as they are trying to make it across the country into the South to hopefully find some like-minded, positive people that they can live with, and to also survive the harsh winters that they have been fighting. Although we never get much detail about this father and son duo, whether it's their names or where they're from or how old they are, like literally anything, I felt and cared for them so deeply, and I genuinely was flipping the pages just concerned about what was going to happen next to them. And I think that that always is a good sign for me because I am a character reader, and so being so attached to these characters that we weren't even really given much about just really boosted this rating for me. So this book was a 4-star for me. I wrote in my reading journal that this felt like when I played and watched The Last of Us, I really wanted those moments in between that we don't get to see with Ellie and Joel, where they are traveling and they are going and staying in these sketchy old houses and all this stuff. And we get to see that in this book, and we get to see the nitty-gritty details of surviving in a post-apocalyptic, I hate saying that word, post-apocalyptic world. We do get to see those details, and so although it's not like The Last of Us in the sense that there are no fungus monsters or anything like that, the monsters are the people along the way that we meet. So I gave this book 4 stars, loved it. It was super dark. I just think it was fantastic, and like I said, the characters really sold me on this one. Next, I read for the buzzword challenge from Books and Lala, the prompt for the word one. I didn't get around to the cover one this month, but the word prompt was before and after, and so I read This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. This is a queer YA novel that follows our main character Auric as he is the chosen one in a prophecy, and at the very beginning of the book, like page 1, he slays the evil king and he fulfills the prophecy, and his mage and his warriors are with him, and it's kind of like a little ragtag group of people that he has gathered, and we see him defeat the evil, and basically the crown falls to Auric because he slayed the old king. And the premise of this book is that before Auric turns 18, which is in like I think 3 months at the beginning of this book, he has to soul bond with someone, and he has to do that in order to remain king and not die. This is all complicated by the fact that Auric is in love with his best friend Matt, who is his mage, and he doesn't want to soul bond with anyone but Matt is not seemingly interested in Auric. This book was really silly and really fun. It did have some serious moments in it, but there was a lot of moments where I was literally smiling reading this book. And I think the thing that didn't work for me, the reason this is a 3-star book for me, is because we are dropped in the ever after part of this book. You know, we are not privy to so much of the gathering of these characters, and so much of this book is kind of just the author trusting you to fill in the gaps yourself. And I just wish, like, I get that that's the whole point of the book, and I actually tried to vlog this book, but I just couldn't. The vlog didn't work out. But in the vlog, what I was saying when I was reading it is, like, I understand the whole point of this book is literally titled This Is Ever After. Like, we're talking about what happens after happily ever after. And I like that concept, but at the same time, I'm someone who likes to get to know my characters. I like to see them forming their bonds. I like to see them falling for each other. And so to be dropped in the middle of this story where they have already all kind of formed bonds and have inside jokes and all this other stuff, it just didn't work for me. I did appreciate a YA queer novel. I appreciated a lot of the comedy. I appreciated how dramatic Auric is. He's just a dramatic 17-year-old kid who just is now king, but it just didn't fully work for me. So we gave it a 3-star. Next, I can actually hold this one up for y'all. Next, I have Forget Me Not. Why did I say it like that? Forget Me Not by Stacey Willingham. This is my 3rd Stacey Willingham, and I believe I've given all 3 of her books 3 stars, including this one. This follows our main character, Claire Campbell, who is a true crime kind of journalist, and she has a deep, dark past, of course. She lost her sister 22 years ago at the beginning of the story. Her sister went missing. Her older sister, Natalie, went missing, and her blood was found inside of an older man's vehicle, and so that man was put away for life. And the case has kind of, been sealed shut. Nobody thinks about it, obviously, except for her family. And she has to go back to her hometown where all of this occurred because she lives in New York, but her mother has a fall, and so she needs to go help her mother out for a little while. And while she's there, she kind of gets wrapped up in this whole case and what happened that summer, and something just doesn't feel right to Claire. And so she does a little bit of investigating herself to see what happened to her sister and some other girls that were involved. This book, I love. Here's the thing. You're like, Lauren, this is your 3rd Stacey Willingham that you've rated 3 stars. Why do you keep rating her? I keep reading her because I just love her writing. Like, I think her writing is addictive. I think it's easy to read in the way that you just keep turning the pages. And I don't know, but I just think her plots themselves are not her strong suit. I found this one predictable, and did I predict every single reveal at the end? No, I did not. But the main ones I did, and that always takes away from a thriller for me. I want to be thrilled. I want to be excited. I want to be, flipping the pages really fast to see what's going on, and that just wasn't happening in this book for me. But one other thing that really bothered me was we have the case of the really annoying main character who just does really dumb things, and you're reading the book and you're just like, no, don't go in there by yourself. Don't steal that gun. Don't, there's just all these things where you're just reading and you're like, why, girl, why? So this one is a 3-star and will be being unhauled, but it was a good time. I will continue to read Stacey Willingham's books, but yeah. Next, I read A Natural History of Dragons by Marie Brennan. This was also 3 stars. This was a fantastical memoir following Lady Trent through her youth and her falling in love with dragons. Not like that kind of falling in love with dragons, like with Katie Robert, not like that, but like falling in love with science and the idea of dragons and learning about how cool they are and all that stuff. And she is in the Lady Society, kind of like Regency era, it feels like, and she has to find a way that she can marry somebody that will let her read and will let her study and will let her be a scientific little lady. So that was part of the book, and then the other part of the book is her actually studying dragons and interacting with dragons. And I keep saying dragons, and you would think this book would be very dragon heavy, but it's not. And that was one of my main critiques of this book, is I love dragons. I think they are so cool, and this book is literally titled A History of Dragons, and pretty much like every time we see a dragon, they killed it. Like, it was just so not magical to me. And we have, like, the narrator for this book was fantastic. If you can get the audiobook and you still want to read this, like, I would still encourage it. Get the audiobook. She's fantastic. But they're just, the dragons weren't cool. Like, they were just getting killed all the time. And I'm like, I get that we want to study the dragon's bones and stuff, but like, I'm tired of reading of you killing dragons. And another part that kind of weirded me out, or like gave me the ick in this book, was that we have our main character, and she is white, and her husband and another guy that's like a rich guy, they take a trip to this remote village where these dragons are, and they kind of like set up shop and like make themselves at home, and they have servants from the village, and it just felt kind of icky, if you know what I'm saying. Like, you're gonna come into these people's homes and kill all these dragons, and it just felt very strange. But so yeah, 3 stars. I liked the idea of the book, but I didn't like the execution of the book. Next, we have The Floating World by Axie O. This is another 3 stars. This is a YA fantasy following Sunho and Ren. These are 2 traveling teens that kind of end up meeting in the middle. Ren is a girl who has been traveling with her adoptive family as an acrobat, not an acrobat, she does performances with them in a traveling caravan. And Sunho is an ex-soldier that has a demon inside of him, and he kind of does odd jobs here and there to get money. And one day, to protect her family, Ren lets go of this light that is inside of her, and it is seen for miles and miles around, and it is the general of the army believes that she is this dangerous person, and so he sends hundreds of trained killers to find and kill her. And Sunho just happens to be one of those trained killers, and they meet and their paths cross and their lives are forever changed. I love Axie O's writing. I gave her book, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, I gave that 5 stars a few years ago. I still love her writing. It's so magical and fantastical and just wonderful, but the plot in this one was a little lackluster for me, and I know there's a second book, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pick it up or not, because yes, this did end on quite the cliffhanger, but at the same time, I wasn't like super invested in the characters, which, as we discussed earlier, is a big deal for me. But also, this was very insta-love, insta-trust, let's just trust each other and travel and tell each other everything kind of thing. And I just think this could have been so delicious if there was more of like a enemies to lovers secret, like I was sent to kill you but you're actually a really good person kind of thing. I think that would have been so good, but it just didn't happen, and so that's why it's a 3 star. And finally, we reach our sandwich. We got a 4 star, and we're going to sandwich it in with another 4 star. Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is a dystopian apocalyptic novel starting in the year 2024, which I remember in 2024, people were like, by the way, this book is an apocalypse novel and it's starting in 2024. Like, let's look around at our world, please. But this follows Lauren, but she is a hyper empath, and in this society, a hyper empath is someone who can physically feel the pain of somebody else. And when she was younger, even, Lauren would bleed when other people would bleed. Like, she would physically start bleeding wherever the cuts were or anything. So she is very vulnerable in this way. And she's living in this neighborhood that is like, what is the word? Gated? It's not gated. It has a wall around it. Like, all the neighborhoods have walls around them, and they're each like little societies inside protecting themselves because the world has fallen apart due to drugs, gangs, disease, just everything. The world is just in shambles, or at least our country. It doesn't really talk about the world at a larger scope. It just talks about the US. which Lauren's father is a preacher in the community, and he has been trying to prepare the community for the worst times. He has trained everyone to shoot a gun. He has trained everyone to be prepared. And Lauren has her own philosophies about God. Her family is Baptist, but she is not. She has her own philosophy called Earthseed. And Earthseed is her own religion / philosophy / just life kind of motto kind of thing. It's got a lot of rules, and we read from Earthseed's book while we're in the book, and Lauren gets to a point where her father goes missing and her neighborhood is ransacked and burned. Lots of people she knows dies, and she has to go on the run, on the road, out in the wild between these gated or walled off communities. And she has a few people with her, but like I said earlier, she's a hyper empath, so I think that was such a brilliant move on Octavia E. Butler's. I've also read Kindred from Octavia Butler, and wow, just such a fantastic author. But making Lauren a hyper empath in a world that is just death and destruction and hurt and murder, like, it just was so smart. And it just showed like Lauren's resistance and her willingness to persevere. And I really liked her as a character. I will say this is, especially at the beginning of the video when I said there's some trigger warnings, this and The Road definitely both are apocalyptic novels, but this one definitely has more insane triggers. The Road has some as well, but this one has some very big triggers in it as well. So this was the one I was really talking about in that disclaimer. But yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to say on Parable of the Sower. Yeah, we have made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed my January wrap-up. Have you read any of these books? If so, let me know what your thoughts were on them. Also, please let me know your favorite read of January, and I will talk to you guys literally probably tomorrow with my February TBR. So I will see you then. Bye!